Steve Sarkisian said this unequivocally is the most talented roster he's had since he's been at the University of Texas. So, is there a chance that some records could be broken this season?
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Longhorns, the show. Jonathan Davis and Lacey Butler, your host. Today's episode of Locked On Longhorns brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Remember, terms and conditions do apply. On today's episode of Locked On Longhorns, single game and season records that could possibly be broken by the 2024 Texas Longhorns team this season. And then in the last segment, Lacey is lacing us up with all the Longhorn Olympic updates. I know you're wondering, where did the idea or the theme for today's episode come from? So if you watched yesterday's episode, I reacted to an Orange Bloods article, some knee-jerk reactions from the first couple of days of practice. And their first knee-jerk reaction was that this Texas football team could set world records, right? And I was like, I don't know if they'll set world records, but there could be a few Texas single season or single game records that are at stake. But I kind of briefly touched on it, maybe 2 to 3 minutes. And I was like, you know what? Let me revisit that and turn it into a whole show. So today, me and Lacey, over the first two segments, are going to look at some of the biggest single game and single season records for the Texas Longhorns and talk about if they can be broken this year by the 2024 Texas football team. So we're going to start with Colt McCoy. Single season. He holds the single season record for passing yards at 3,859. This was done in 2008, that magical 2008 season where he completed 76% of his passes. No Longhorn quarterback has ever thrown for 4,000 yards in a season. Quinn Ewers' career high is 3,479, which came last year. And mind you, he missed 2 games. So he was 380 yards behind Colt's single season Texas record, and he missed 2 games. Lacey, 2 questions. Does Quinn break Colt's record of 3,859 yards this year? And does he become the first Texas quarterback to reach 4,000 yards in a season?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I know we've seen Steve Sarkisian's offenses go off in the past. We know we've seen what he was able to do with a Jake Locker-led offense. You know, we saw what he was able to do with a year 3 Mac Jones, you know, that sat behind a few quarterbacks and sat his turn and, you know, was able to develop and everything like that. Honestly, for me, I expect Quinn to take that next step forward. I definitely expect Quinn to take the next necessary strides that we need him to win us games, possibly take us to an SEC championship game year 1 in the conference. But that is a very, very tall task. That is a very, very tall task. You're facing an entirely new conference of opponents, new environments. There's so much riding on this season just in general. I think with the pressure, Quinn has showed that he has struggled in game time decisions sometimes when the pressure can be really, really on. Does show up in big games, but it's just one of those things that it's such a tall task to reach Colt-like levels that I don't see it happening. What about you? What do you think?
Okay, so I disagree. I disagree. I definitely think, like I said, he was 380 yards behind Colt last year, right? And he missed 2 games. So if you would assume that he would throw for 190 yards in each of those games, then he would have matched Colt's record last year, right? So I think in terms of getting past 3,859 with all of the weapons he has on this offense, I don't think that'll be an issue for Quinn Ewers this year at all. I think the tougher question will be, will he get to 4,000 yards? And I just did some calculations. So if Texas only plays in 13 games this year, he'll have to average about 307 yards per game. That seems a little ambitious, right? If Texas plays in 14 games this year, he'll have to average 285. And if Texas plays in 15 games, he'll have to average 266 yards. And then obviously you can just keep going from there, right? So I do think that Quinn Ewers breaks Colt McCoy's single-season Texas passing record this year, and because I think this offense is going to be super explosive. I think we're going to go deep in the playoffs. I think we make the SEC championship game as well. And I think Steve Sarkisian will be motivated to try to get his guy a Heisman and Quinn Ewers. I think Quinn Ewers breaks Colt McCoy's single-season record, and he becomes the first Texas quarterback to ever throw for 4,000 yards. I'm surprised we were off on that one. I thought that definitely.
I know. Honestly, for me, it's more so about question marks in. I'm nervous about how they're going to perform earlier on in the season. I'm nervous about, the receiver room, how obviously we're deep at that room, but we don't have a lot of guys in that room that have Steve Sarkisian in-game experience. So it's just one of those things that I think it might take a second for us to really saddle up and get going. So I don't know. I had a lot of, I'm telling you, whenever I was sitting there doing my notes and everything for this episode, I went back and forth so many times with this one, but I don't know. I struggle. All
right. The single game passing record at the University of Texas is held by Major Applewhite. This was in the Holiday Bowl against Washington in 2001. Major Applewhite threw for 473 yards. Quinn's career high is 452, which came in the Big 12 championship game last year against Oklahoma State. So 21 yards off. Is there a chance that Quinn Ewers will throw for 474 yards in a game this season?
There's a chance, but honestly, it goes with the first answer. I put no as well, just because of the fact that Big 12 championship game was really one of the only times, whenever doing my research and everything, going back through his entire game log, that was one of the only times that he really reached Major Applewhite's stratosphere in that aspect. So it's not something that he's been able to do consistently. Would I love to see it happen? Absolutely. But it's just one of those things that I don't know, with us facing new opponents, with us going into the SEC. I just don't know if that's, especially with Steve Sarkisian wanting to be a balanced offense as well. It's just one of those things that I don't know if he's going to break that single game record.
So my thinking is, if Quinn even gets close to 470 yards, then we're probably blowing the doors off of somebody.
Yeah.
Right? And we've seen in the past that Steve Sarkisian will, Mr. All Gas, No Brakes, will take his foot off the gas late in games, right? Mm-hmm. If the game is in hand. So I think if Quinn even got close, first of all, I don't even know if Sark would know off the top of his head, like, okay, I need to get Quinn to 474. And I feel like if he even got close to 470, then we would just start running the ball like crazy at the end of the game, because we'd already be beating somebody by 20 or 30. So, he let him, Quinn, do his thing. He let him hang a little bit in the Big 12 championship last year with 452, got pretty close. I'm pretty sure if Sark knew what the record was, he would have let Quinn get to 474. But yeah, like you said, I just don't see a scenario in which Quinn can get to 474 this year, because if he even gets close, that means we're blowing the doors off somebody. And then it's going to turn into a Cedric Baxter, Jaden Blue, and whoever else plays running back for the Texas Longhorns game at that point. Single game touchdown record, passing touchdown record, Colt McCoy and Casey Thompson well tied with 6. Quinn Ewers' career high is 4. I think he's done it either 2 or 3 times, thrown 4 passing touchdowns in a game. Do you see a scenario where Quinn Ewers throws 6 or more passing touchdowns in a game this season?
No. Similar for the reasons that you said to finish out that last question. Simply for the fact that I think with having Arch behind him, if he's already at the 3 and 4 touchdown mark, we're getting into the point, unless we are in just a complete barn burner and it's just a team that we cannot stop defensively. It's just one of those things with having Arch waiting in the wings, waiting to go into year 2, or waiting to go into year 3, year 2, waiting for his year 3 to start, hopefully, with all things considered, so it's like I said, for the exact same reasons that you said, I just see more of a situation in which if he's throwing 4 and 5 touchdowns, it's getting to a point where Sark is probably going to put Arch in pretty soon. And it's going to be one of those games. So I'm with you, like I said, for the exact reasons that you mentioned last time, just because I think with Arch having Arch in the wings, it just makes it that much easier to put in a backup quarterback in the later quarters to be able to finish out those easier games, you know. What about you? What did you put in your notes? What do you think?
I do think Quinn ties it. I don't think he breaks it. I think 7 would be a little bit OD, but I do think Quinn ties it this season. Like I said, everybody knows Quinn is trying to win the Heisman. Steve Sarkisian knows that. I think there's going to be a game where he throws 3 or 4 touchdown passes in the first half, maybe 4, and then he can come out and get 2 more in the third quarter. And then maybe even if he's at 5, depending on the score of the game, if it's not a 28-point lead or more, you leave him in and he throws another one. But I think there's going to be a scenario where he gets to 3 or 4 really early at some point in the season, and then they shoot for 6, right? Or they just let him, go in and, you get into the red zone, you start play calling specifically to try to get a passing touchdown. So I don't think he can get to 7. That's going to be a little bit OD. But I do think Quinn Ewers will have a game this season where he throws for 6 passing touchdowns as they somewhat chase that Heisman for Quinn Ewers this year. Now, in terms of – no, go ahead.
No, I just said fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, so I do think he'll have a 6-touchdown game this year, passing touchdowns. Now, in terms of the rushing, we're not going to do a segment on this at all. I'm just going to run through this really quickly because nobody is touching Ricky Williams. No. Single season, 2,124 yards. We're not seeing that with our running back by committee. 350. We could see that, but I highly doubt it with the way that we're going to be sharing the touches. 27 touchdowns in a season. No running back this year, at least. It's running for 27. Bijan never even came close, and he probably would be the best candidate. And then 6 in a game. Like I said, the way that we share those touches, the way Quinn Ewers is going to be throwing the ball, Ricky's records are going to be Ricky's records for another year.
I literally put it in my notes. I was like, I think Ricky's records are safe. Ha ha.
Yeah, Ricky's records are safe, right? You don't have to worry about those. A quick word from our sponsors, and then we get into some of Jordan Shipley's records. Could they fall this season? Today's episode of Locked On Longhorns brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. Good thing they don't ever stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right. I forgot to mention when those Ricky Williams records happen. So for my people that want to know this, right, I can't just assume everybody knows. I skipped this. So Colt McCoy threw 6 touchdowns against Baylor. Casey Thompson threw 6 touchdowns against Kansas. Colt McCoy had the 34. Oh, we didn't do the 34 touchdowns. We threw 34 touchdowns in 2008. Okay. And Ricky Williams, 1998 was the 2,124 yards. He ran for 350 yards in 1998 against Iowa State. And then he had 27 touchdowns in 1998. 6 touchdowns against Rice. Also had 6 touchdowns against New Mexico State, both in the 1998 season. Jeez. All right. Moving on to receiving records at the University of Texas. Jordan Shipley, once again, single season, single game. 2009, he had 116 catches in that season. Do you see any Texas receiver on this roster this year going for 117 catches or more?
No, I think Sarkis said it best. It's his deepest room that he's had at the University of Texas. And I just see him being able, he has that rotation at the ready. He hasn't been big on rotation in the past, but he's already mentioned that he will be rotating in the receiver room a lot more this season. So I just think that we have so many different dynamic playmakers that I just don't see one single guy being able to, I don't know. Like I said, I just don't really see one single guy being leaps and bounds above the other in terms of reception rate. I just don't, I don't, as of right now, I don't see a guy being able to have, or not being able to, but just having that stand out to be able to have that many receptions on the season, just in my opinion, based off of what we've seen from Sark recently. What about you? How do you feel? Because, like I said, this one's iffy because Sark does always have his main guy. So it this could go either way. What about you, Jonathan? What do you think?
Yeah, I think 116 is a lot. You know, when you look at it, you're essentially averaging. You're going to be averaging about 10 catches a game. You know what I mean? Yeah, maybe a little bit less than 10, but even 9 catches a game is a lot, right? To do that every single game. So I think Sark is under a lot of pressure to play a lot of guys, right? There's 6 guys that the entire fan base wants to see, right? From Isaiah Bond to Ryan Wingo, you know what I mean? So
and Ryan Wingo is a guy that it's going to be hard to keep off the field. So
yeah, and I mean this record has stood for 15 years for a reason, at the University of Texas. So I just think 116 is hard to get. Closest was Devin Duvernay in 2019, and even he was 10 catches short. So I just don't really see a scenario where somebody gets to 116. Most under Sark thus far is Xavier Worthy with 75 last year. So I mean, not even close. When we look at it, single game, this one is a little interesting. 15 receptions in 2008 for Jordan Shipley against Oklahoma State. Xavier Worthy came close with 14 against Kansas, so he was 1 away from tying the record. Do you see a wide receiver on a Texas football team getting 15 or more receptions? So I would say, do you see someone tying or breaking the 15 receptions in a game record this season set by Jordan Shipley in 08?
I don't know about breaking it, but I definitely could see Isaiah Bond tying that record. I definitely think, like you said, Sark is, without Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell, Sark is looking for guys to step up and go downfield. He wants to go vertical. He wants to get those big chunk plays. And I really think that Isaiah Bond is going to be that main guy that he really, really looks at and goes to. And if he's just busting it open over the top, then I definitely could see Sark just force feed. We saw it in 2021 whenever all he really had in that pretty much in that room was Xavier Worthy. So we saw him having to force feed a little bit more. So I obviously I don't think that that's something that we have to worry about with this room, obviously. But at the same time, I definitely could see with his playmaking ability, I could see Isaiah Bond at least tying that reception record in game. What about you? How do you feel?
I'm going to say no. The reason I'm going to say that, just because we've talked about so much talent in the room, but also, just being frank, Isaiah Bond has had somewhat of a drop issue, right? And so if you're saying that he's going to get 15 or 16 catches in a game, he's probably going to have 20 plus targets, right? And I just don't see really any game scenario this year where, as much as we want to run the ball, as much as we want to spread the talent around, right? I don't see any scenario this year in which we're going to target Isaiah Bond 20 plus times, right? Like, I think that we had to do that with Xavier Worthy out of necessity because it was like Xavier Worthy and everybody else. I mean, that's just like, that was the most top heavy, literally at the top we've ever been at the wide receiver position. So, like I said, I just don't see a scenario in which Isaiah Bond would get 20 targets this year. And it's really not, like I said, I did mention the drop issue, but it's not really about, I don't think he could handle 20 targets. I'm sure he could.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just more so like, I don't think we'll be in a scenario where Quinn is just so locked into Isaiah Bond. Like, all we have is just Isaiah Bond. You know what I mean? Like, there's just way too much talent on this offense to be targeting one person 20 times in one game. Single season receiving yardage, 1,485 by Jordan Shipley in 2009. Do you see a Texas wide receiver getting to 1,500 yards this season?
No. We didn't even see it with Xavier Worthy in his time at Texas. I don't see a guy being able to I just don't see a guy being, because like we said, it's a deep room from top to bottom, and I just see the ball being spread out a lot more this upcoming season for a guy to really eclipse 1,500 yards. Like I said, we didn't even see it with Xavier Worthy, so I definitely don't see it with as deep of a room as we have now. So I definitely don't see that happening. What about you? How do you feel? What about you?
I think it does. I think Isaiah Bond breaks the single season record for Texas this year. When you look at it, so 1485, I think Texas is going to play in at least 14 to 15 games this year, right? So he would only have to average about 100 to, let's say, 110 yards per game, right? When you look at the spring game, he had 2 75-yard catches, right? So I'm pretty sure, like, unless I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure, right? And so I just think with this offense, you remember, when he had Devontae Smith, how he was just able to scheme him open down the field. I mean, repeatedly, week in and week out. I mean, in the national championship game, They had a linebacker covering Devontae Smith. Like, you just cannot stop Sark when he's in his bag and when he has the pieces, right? And so I just don't think there's any way, right? If this Texas offense is what we think they're going to be, right, I don't see how you can stop Isaiah Bond from getting 100 yards a game. So, yeah, I do think Isaiah Bond breaks the single-season Texas receiving record this year. I do think he's the first Texas receiver to ever go over 1,500 yards in the season, all right? Somebody's going to be pulling a bunch of clips from this episode, right?
I know. We're going back and forth.
You're going to be super right or
yeah, I know, right? Hey, you know what? We did this on purpose to where we have different answers so that one of us is right. We're right either way. So.
Right. All right. Single game, 273 yards for Jordan Shipley. Close was Xavier Worthy, 261 against Oklahoma. Do you see anybody going for 274 yards in a game this year?
No, I do not. Similar, I mean, based off of the exact same reasons that we've said previously, I just think this receiver room is too deep. Sark is going to rotate more than he has previously. And I just think you're going to get a lot of guys that have more touches that just take attempts away from other guys. And I just don't, I don't see a guy hitting that 273 or eclipsing or making it any more than that. So that's just me. Like I said, I think we're just too deep. We're just way, way too deep at the position. And, it's going to be hard to keep guys like, Ryan Wingo. And we've heard great things about DeAndre Moore out of camp so far already. So it's gonna end up getting to a point where it's just really hard to keep guys off the field. So I don't think that we're gonna have a guy that does that this year. What about you? How do you feel?
Yeah, I'm gonna just keep it simple. No, I don't think that's gonna happen. 13 touchdowns in the season for Jordan Shipley. Do you think a receiver goes over that this year?
No.
Okay, I'm going to say yes. I think Isaiah Bond goes for 1,500 yards, and I think he goes for 15-plus touchdowns. Ooh. Interceptions in the season, Earl Thomas had 8. That was – my bad. Let me give y'all – all these Jordan Shipley ones were in the same season pretty much.
Yeah.
Let me give y'all – I got to go back to the defense. Where we at? Okay, Earl Thomas had – you could probably guess what season it was if you're a Texas fan, but Earl Thomas had 8 interceptions in the season. Do you see any player on this team?
I think it was 2009.
8 or more interceptions in the season. I'm about to find it. I'm scrolling through Wikipedia super hard right now.
I'm pretty sure it was 2009.
Probably. Yeah. Do you think a Texas player goes for 8 or more interceptions this season? It was 2009.
No.
Yeah, I don't think we got ball hawks like that. This is no disrespect.
We don't.
I don't think we got 8 in a season type ball hawks. You know what I'm saying? Like, we still trying to figure out who our starting DBs are going to be in 20 days.
Exactly.
Like, let alone 8 in the season. Shout out Earl Thomas, man. All right.
Shout out.
4 interceptions in a game by Bill Bradley in 1968. Ooh, who was this against? Texas A&M. Hold on. Shout out to Lone Star Showdown. That's coming back.
Dirty.
Do you see any Texas player getting 4 interceptions in a game this year?
No. Like I said, no ball hawks, like you said, or not no ball hawks, but just not like that.
Not like that, right? 195 tackles in a single season. That was Britt Hager, 1988, 195 tackles. Also is second on the list in 187. It was a tackling machine.
Yeah.
Yes or no? 195 tackles.
No, not this season. I don't know. I think Anthony Hill Jr. might get really, really close, but no, I don't think that's a lot.
I think Jalen Ford had like 110 or something like that.
Yeah,
when he went crazy a couple years ago. Yeah, 195. That's just outdated.
That's crazy. Yeah, it's just insane.
That'll probably stand forever. 22 and a half sacks in the season. Kiki Daela. I don't know how to say that name, but 22 and a half sacks in the season.
Insane.
That has stood since 1982. Do you think that's getting broken?
No.
All right. And then Shane Bonnet in 1990 had 5 sacks in a game. Do you think that's happening this year?
No, I do not.
I do think Trey Moore can match that. I'm not going to say I'm not going to say he will, but I do think Trey Moore could get 5 sacks in a season, or I think eventually Colin Simmons could be the type of player to get 5 sacks not in a season, in a game, right?
I think Trey Moore is going to be very, very sneaky on that edge. So I definitely could see him sneaking in there with either getting 4 or 5, but I don't know. I don't see him surpassing that,
All right. Well, for the most part, we were pessimistic, but I do think a few Texas Longhorn records will be broken this season. Now, a quick word from our sponsors, and then Lacey gets us out of here, giving us a roundup on all of our Texas Longhorns doing great at the Olympics. Texas could be a competitive country the way they've been showing out in Paris over the last couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Today's episode of Locked On Longhorns also brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance with superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to my U.S. customers. Sorry to everybody that's not in the U.S. All right, Lacey, the floor is yours. Let them know
Yes,
what
sir. Yes,
Longhorns
sir.
are doing in Paris.
Yes, sir. The Texas Longhorns are absolutely showing out in Paris right now, Jonathan. I know I mentioned before that we were sending 27 current and former Longhorns to the Olympic Games, but I kind of jumped the gun a little bit because we're sending 37 former and current Texas Longhorns. So it's just been crazy. Not only are we showing up, but we're showing out. The Longhorns, as of today, claiming 10 medals so far and just waiting around for more. There's a current little debate going on whether it's 10 or 12 claimed because we won a silver medal in the 4x200 freestyle relay in which 3 of the 4 legs were swam by former Longhorns. Carson Foster, Drew Kibler, and Luke Hobson make up 3 of 4 of those legs in that 4x200 freestyle relay that won the silver medal. For argument's sake, we'll just go with 10. But for anyone counting, that would be good enough for 12th best in the entire world, ahead of countries like New Zealand, Brazil, Ireland. Since I've already mentioned some of our swimmers and everything, we'll go ahead and start out a lot of our shout outs and everything in the pool with Aaron Gemmel winning the silver medal as a member of the 4x200 freestyle relay. Hubert Koch won us our first gold medal of the cycle in the 200 meter backstroke. Casper Corbo took home the bronze in the 200 meter breaststroke. Luke Hobson and Carson Foster taking home individual medals in the 200 meter free and the 400 meter IM. As usual, we were very, very well represented in the pool. Also, we were constantly, so what was really cool to hear as well, we were constantly talked about whenever France's best swimmer, Leon Marchand, was being discussed as well, because his current coach is our current coach, head coach Bob Bowman, taking over for Eddie Reese in the pool. So that's been pretty cool to hear. Multiple Longhorns have made history on the track as well already, like Ryan Krauser, who becomes the first shot putter ever to win 3 gold medals at the Olympic Games. And as you've already mentioned on here, Julian Alfred, who wins not only her first ever gold medal, but her first ever Olympic medal for the Caribbean nation of St. Lucia. So not only is it her first medal ever, it's her first medal for the country of St. Lucia, and it's a gold. So like, what else could you want? Leo Nujbar, takes home the silver in the decathlon, which is probably low-key kind of a disappointment for Leo. But honestly, I'm damn proud nonetheless. So taking home the silver, super, super proud of him. We know Scotty Scheffler is the best golfer in the world. We still have Chiaka Ogbogu bringing in the roof for the USA women's volleyball team, plus many more events on the track. It's just been a very, very, very good game for the Longhorns so far. And I don't know about you, but I've been absolutely glued to my TV no matter what the time is. So thank you so much for having me, and thanking you. What did I say that? That made no sense. My brain just started working on time. But that's all of our Longhorns that have done super, super well thus far in Paris. And I can't wait to sit and keep watching. I'm just really excited. It's like I said, I've been glued to my TV.
Yeah, the Longhorns have been showing out for sure, and we still got some more medals on the way. Kevin Durant going for his 4th. I just want to mention that he is now USA men's basketball team's all-time leading scorer and all-time leading rebounder, right? And so, like I said, Kevin
how did I
Durant
not mention that?
for gold this week because he hasn't won the gold yet, right? So you were going off the
That's
medals
fair.
he's already won, right? You're
That's
gonna have to do
fair.
an update. Like I said, after Kevin Durant, Mr. Olympics, Captain America, gets another gold medal. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Longhorns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Hook 'em. Peace.